Ay, it's a new world, gotta adapt to it. Innovation, information, more than the average. Rushing, please ignore the interruptions, cause this is digital discussions.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Digital Discussions. I'm here with a close friend of mine that I've known for many years now and always enjoy catching up with, Bryan Smith from Kinrgy. Bryan, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Jay. Thanks for having me. All good here.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to cover a lot of things here today. We're going to cover how we met, which definitely has something to do with the fitness world. Years ago, and we're going to talk about just I'd like to talk a little bit about the world in general, business, the fitness industry, and definitely want to obviously get as much info on Kinrgy
Sure.
because it's kind of new to me and it's super exciting. So excited.
Yeah, you got it. All sounds good. Nothing's off the table.
Oh, wow. All right. Now I'm going to have to dig it even further than I expected. Don't get nervous. So let's take it back to the beginning. So you and I first met when you were at Lifetime Fitness, right?
Yep.
And that's got to be, how many years ago is that now?
Yeah, it's like it's coming up on 10 years. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
So,
it's wild.
you know what? I think it would be interesting for the audience to know what transpired on that first meeting. Like you and I met, we kind of toured. We toured markets around Long Island.
Yeah.
You were new to Long Island at the time.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's funny. So the way it went down, my only experience really on Long Island, I was with Lifetime at the time for, probably 7 or 8 years before being asked to go out and open the Northeast market, open our first club, which was going to be Syosset there on Long Island. And, I had heard great things about you. You were kind of the guy that knew the ins and outs of the area, but we really wanted to better understand the customer. And so I flew out. It was only like my third trip out just to check out the area, but I had already kind of blindly made the commitment to move there. And so I remember I jumped in. I think you pulled up in your Escalade, if I'm not mistaken, and we were going to go do like market tours.
Yeah.
And the second I jumped in, I was like, there was just something. Your aura was there was a lot of goodness there. So we hit it off. We went and had a bite to eat. We explored some of the local area. And you said, I'm going to show you around. You're going to figure out where you want to live, because I had no idea where I wanted to end up. And lo and behold, you were right. You said the last place we stop is where you're probably going to want to, set up shop. Because I thought I was going to be like, am I moving to Manhattan? Am I moving to Brooklyn? I'm this Midwest boy with no idea. And so yeah, we wound up, the last stop happened to be Huntington Village. And, we're driving down the street. This is just how the universe works. We're driving down the street. We're driving down Main Street. And you remember this guy was putting up a sign, new luxury condo available now. So I popped out of the car and went up and met the guy who was developing this, this beautiful new loft. And that wound up being the first place I moved to when I moved to Long Island. And had we not been on that drive that day, who knows?
It's amazing. I mean, and that was a very cool building. It was a just well located, right in the heart of town. And
right.
And I'm sure we could spend hours on here talking about how much fun you had when you moved to Huntington Village, I would imagine.
Of course. Yeah.
But we're not going to do that. We're on another separate podcast. Maybe we will one day. So you moved to Long Island. You're working for Lifetime, and I remember coming to visit you when you had the showroom.
Yeah, the pre-sale. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we I don't know, you're frozen right now. I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah, we had a pre-sale off. Oh, you're good. Yeah. We had a pre-sale office there, right on Robbins Lane. And it wound up being one of the most successful, pre-sales and ramp ups the company had ever seen. It was a unique club for us because we had, prior to coming to Long Island, that level of membership, so that, we, at the time we called it a diamond membership, that hadn't really existed in big box format. And so it was a huge test for the company. Bram, the founder, was all in on this one, and we were really bullish about what the thing could do. And it certainly blew all expectations away. And as you know, being a Long Islander yourself, we learned so many lessons in many things, business and not, how to do things right and how to do things wrong in that first year of operating Syasa. It's just another world.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and it went on to open tremendously successful. Yeah, as you mentioned, it was tremendously successful, and it was new. Long Island had Equinox, right? So
Right.
3 Equinox locations:
Yep.
Great Neck, Roslyn, Woodbury. Right? Yep.
That's right.
And this was the first Lifetime, and really the first. I personally refer to Lifetime as a cruise ship.
Right. Yeah.
The first cruise ship gym
Right.
on Long Island, because I personally prefer smaller, cozier environments to work out at. I have worked out at Lifetime, and it's interesting now. Fast forward to 2020, and it's a completely different world. And who knows what will happen to those larger footprint facilities and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. But that's an interesting segue for us, because you and I both eat, sleep, and breathe health, wellness. We're always looking for ways to innovate, right? And kind of think about what's ahead of what most people are currently doing. And I think, based on what you've described to me about Kinrgy, I think you guys are really onto something super cool and, timely, really, based on what's happening in the world right now. So if you can give us some background on Kinrgy, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kinrgy, it's a dance concept. Really, it's founded by Julianne Hough. She, well known for, success in Dancing with the Stars, among many other things, 2-time champion there. And she's an incredible, creative, right? She's just got just an amazing knack for really understanding the things that she digs all the way into, right? She's not just the creative, but she's actually, she goes all the way in to better understand how things are affecting people and certainly herself. So Kinrgy was created just to really scratch an itch for her, right? She was hopping from concept to concept, like a lot of us do. You and I have had this conversation many times. And trying to figure out a way to streamline that and realize that, there's certainly a way to not have to do that, to not have to go door to door for all the different modalities. And so, she got to work on really putting together I would call it a dance oriented concept. Dance is certainly at the core, but it's got a lot of breath work. It's got a lot of, strength movement in it, and created a 45-minute signature class that, that essentially built, the team was built around that class. Really went out and hired a group of incredible guides who could bring that and share that with the world. So, it's been amazing to see. I was actually brought in, a friend introduced me just as a resource to help kind of shape the direction they were headed. When I met Julianne, the company basically was going to go and, in a very innovative way, was going to go in and do the boutique thing and do the face-to-face experiential concept, New York, LA, and a whole bunch of B markets in the middle of them. And fortunately, the company was able to launch with an Oprah tour. So Kinrgy got to do basically a condensed method and take the 45-minute method, squeeze it into about 20. And on this 9-city Oprah tour across the U.S., really that was the unveiling of it to those in the stands, right? So, Barclays Center, sold out crowd, 8 other amazing cities across the U.S. really got to take part in everything that was Kinrgy. And so, that being the launch pad, the idea was to next go into this somewhat of a residency model to, share this with people, but not not sign the, the 10 or 10-year or longer leases. And that Oprah tour ended about 3 weeks before the COVID situation went down. I don't know what we want to call the COVID situation, but right, it's
COVID, right?
It's a beast.
It is what it is. It's the COVID situation, AKA the new world.
Right. That's it. And so with that, right, with the Oprah tour ending and this idea of the in-person experience coming soon, you could say, as soon as COVID hit, it was an immediate pivot. It was, let's go at this thing differently and let's build out a digital model. So it's really, it's an amazing story. It went from that just being a concept and, is this something that could really be shared digitally, to, hey, let's give it a shot. And we hosted a class it was actually on a Monday morning, which the days meant nothing in those early days of COVID, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
So didn't matter if it was a Sunday, a Monday, or Tuesday. It was all the same. And so we launched on a Monday morning, and we had announced that on like a Thursday or Friday that Julianne was actually going to be taking that time slot and hosting a Zoom class, so a call like this. And we put it up and essentially committed to donating part of the proceeds to COVID relief. And lo and behold, we had almost 700 people sign up for class that day. And that the feedback from that class was just, it was raving reviews and over the top. How can we get more of this? Where does this exist? Do you have anything in person, et cetera? And so we came back another like week and a half later with another class and made it somewhat event-based. We thought, hey, let's see this, right? Let's see if the crowd will stay, and let's see if it's something that they'll share with loved ones. And sure enough, we had about 40% growth, almost week over week. And so that got the team, hunting for let's either see if there's a platform we can jump onto and essentially bolt onto and bring this to the world, or is it something we build ourselves? And so we wound up doing the latter, and it's in development. Q4 it'll launch, and it'll be its own platform, and that's kind of the unveiling that hasn't really been exposed yet, but it's going to be pretty incredible. And so what we've seen thus far with the trends of just this period of incubation, if you will, the quarantine time, it's like this amazing trend line that you watch. What we're watching people do right now is, certain people were gung-ho. They're, every class that was offered, they were jumping in. They weren't really sharing it at all. There was this period where there was like lag time, and now those people that were early are back. And so it's been wild to watch for sure.
So right now, if somebody watching wants to take a Kinrgy class, are they still getting onto Zoom essentially? Does that? So what are you doing right now?
Yeah, great question. So they would go to kinrgy.com, KINRGY.com. And what that allows you to do, you'll see a very, basic schedule. We've got, call it 8 to 10 classes a week right now. And you'll pop in any of those classes. Those are beginning next week, actually. So another fun announcement. A class is going to be accessible for 24 hours. So, at any time of the day, someone's going to be able to jump in and actually take the Kinrgy class that day.
From start to finish?
Yeah. So actually,
yeah.
So what's going to happen is you drop in just like you would at an in-person studio. You'll pay to take the class. Whenever you're able to take that class, it's basically going to live on a 24-hour calendar cycle. And so we're going to do that until the platform launches itself. Again, fun exposure to the news that's coming. But when the platform launches, you'll have everything from live classes to library classes, all the Kinrgy your heart can possibly desire. But right now that's how people are consuming it, and we'll have memberships available come platform launch. Yeah.
Very cool. So now let's back up for a minute and go back to like 20,000 feet and talk about the fitness wellness industry as a whole, since you and I are both pretty well versed in it. I think people watching would probably find it interesting to maybe hear our thoughts on where it was in, January of the year and where it is currently and where it is going, right?
Right.
And, I'm having a lot of conversations around that. And I think that first off, Kinrgy is in a very unique position to have started down the path of developing a business, not signing any leases, not having any existing leases, liabilities that you need to more or less, figure out, renegotiate, and essentially try to fix what you have before moving forward. So you guys are really blessed from that standpoint because you're starting with a clean slate in this new world, and we're able to pivot right when everything first hit. Now,
100%.
having said that, there's a lot of companies that you and I both know and are in communication with, et cetera, that are not in that position.
Right.
So if you owned a boutique fitness studio, right, or a chain of studios, what would your thought process be right now based on the fact that, let's just say for argument's sake, you only a handful of your existing locations are operating, they're operating at a reduced capacity. Your market rent that you sign the lease on is obviously above what a new lease, if you signed next week, would be, all of the things that we all know. Like, what would your thought process be if you were in a different position with an existing business that had location?
Yeah. Well, as you know, my brilliant wife has one of these. And so we're in that situation. She, from the very second this thing started, she immediately looked at it and said, obviously none of us knew nobody knows what the end date looks like and what future looks like yet. But
her location is a yoga location in Long Island, in New York, that still has no date certain to open.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so, I think there's her situation, and then there's call it those who have 100, 200 plus locations, a lot of them with very high, some of my favorites and yours too, very high rent rate. Right. And I think the big factor for me is how does this possibly get repurposed? Because, a lot of these, if you look at the digital space, what happened now with COVID is everybody who was reluctant to go that digital direction, and some of them for good reason, right? Some of them, they knew that their gold lied in the in-person experience and that pent up demand, and there's only so many spots, et cetera. You kind of lose that with digital, convincing somebody that, if Coldplay held a concert tomorrow digitally, there might be 1 million people that show up for it, whereas stadiums fill, right? And I think in the fitness world, that those who were reluctant to go digital they were caught with their pants down, and as much as they want to stand firm and say, we're going to hold tight, those bills, they keep a coming, right? So I think that the repurposing of the space, if people were able to go digital, right? If they were able to create a unique experience that their existing customer base could appreciate enough to pay for, and then maybe grab new market that was willing to pay something for it that had never tried it before, is there a way to repurpose those spaces to be able to essentially produce that content, right? And I'm not saying that that's going to cover the entire nut, but at the end of the day, if you're able to cover a portion of it by purposing it as a production house, the world is consuming virtually right now. And so there's something there. But beyond that, I really, I feel for those that had the Fifth Avenue, the Park Avenue rent rates, and have landlords who are just struggling to see around the corner and see that, the short-term situation is very grim, probably more grim, you could say, for that tenant than it is for them. And I think it just puts everybody in this clash, right? And and so, to answer your question, maybe a little bit more granularly, if repurposing is an option, it's a direction you need to head to. I believe everybody should try to do something that is guaranteed right now, right? You don't have to be the best in the world at it, but just show people that you're still here, and that you're not just waiting for for an evolution of sorts to take place. But then I also think that there's even there's this next stage that comes, which is, are people willing to come back? Like if you repurpose for a period of time, I read a stat the other day, I think it was 58% of people said that they're not going to go back to their gym. Now, this is people who are current gym goers. 58% of that group is saying that they're not stepping back in the door. Now that can change, but the conversation you and I have had is I'm like obsessed like you with just the way that the consumer's mind works, and having spent so many years with Lifetime, that's really what we became. The longer you were around it, the better you became at just understanding what that consumer desires and needs and really wants. And one of the things that happened from COVID, and this is a blessing and a curse for many, is by about April 30th, right? By like kind of that 6-week mark, people's habits were broken, and some of them in great ways where they, I have dear friends, and I've been this guy, right? Where I'm a 4, 5, 6 day a week person in person, right? And I used to laugh at the idea of somebody actually achieving great results at home. Like I used to think come on, and people were forced to do it. So those hard chargers, they proved to themselves that there was a way to do it at home. And so now the question's going to be, do they want to convince themselves to go back? And if they do, what do those numbers end up looking like? And can this be a business that's even sustainable anymore?
Yeah. I mean, you said a lot, and I agree with everything you said. And I love catching up with you because you're so smart and you're in touch with everything that's happening. And I think, well, I agree completely about the habits part, right? Like, I got a Peloton right, I was like one of the last deliveries when I saw this thing coming, and I have barely ever taken a spin class. I could count them on one hand. I don't particularly enjoy spinning,
right?
But I got the Peloton. I first learned how convenient it was, where I was basically, instead of waking up at 6:15, getting to a class at 7, working out, so on and so forth, literally taking up 2.5 hours of my morning, basically start to finish, I was accomplishing a really good sweat in less than an hour. Okay. So basically I found about an hour and a half in my morning, right? Now I was still missing the group fitness classes that I was taking, right? The Barry's class that you and I bumped into in Amagansett exactly a year ago. Like, that's not happening now, right? Like, and the fact that, like, it tells me that my friend's riding, like, whatever, it doesn't really do anything for me. I'm not having that social experience, but I am getting a good workout. Now I'm totally sick of getting on the Peloton bike, by the way. I'm having a tough time even getting on it once a week. And back to your point, in April, I thought that I could ride it daily, even if it was just like I do a half hour and I do other stuff. I'm at a point where I'm just like, it's tough to get me on the damn thing. It's almost a rack for my button down shirts, right? Like, it's getting to that point. But what I've learned through the whole process is I think I was working out too hard, right? Because you start to get in your mind about, if you're not so exhausted, crushing it, like, doing a really killer 45-minute or 60-minute class, that you're not even working out and you're not going to get results. I pulled back my working out, incorporated walks and things that are like, I would never have thought of doing, or would have done, but never considered my workout for the day. And I'm in better physical condition right now than I was before COVID started. So I was, and by the way, my shoulder doesn't hurt, like, I don't have those aches and pains that I was experiencing. And I think, that from a habit standpoint, the same way that I look at Starbucks, right? Like when COVID was happening, I was craving Starbucks at the actual store versus my Keurig, but I didn't want to die by touching a cup that somebody else touched.
Right.
That's how much fear you had at that moment. That fear is no longer there. And I'm still on the drive-through once a day, but I was typically on the drive-through 3 times a day, right? So I'm going back to some of my old habits, but the frequency has changed, right? So if I'm going to go take a F45, a Barry's, a Rumble, insert premium fitness class here, F45, obviously doing more. What I was doing that basically every day, solid core, basically, alternating practically every day between solid core F45 and other things. Am I going to now continue doing it when I feel safe or when I have the option to do it because it's actually open, right? And if I do, which I know I will, by the way, and I can't wait for that day to happen, but will I do it as frequently? That's the thing. That's and that's the, retention and frequency is the name of the game in fitness, right?
That's it. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It is, you're not unique, right? I think the thing that maybe you are unique by doing is the fact that you maintained, right? You kept things going. There's a large crowd that the only thing they maintained through this period was their drinking habit, and it only got worse, right?
Totally.
But I do think that you bring up some great points around, those are, yes, they're premium providers, and there's something about the frequency people are going and the intensity level that they're bringing when they go. When you look at the retention rate of, say a Barry's, Barry's has made it on that pent up demand and on the, same with Soul, right? In the early days, like booking opened at a certain time and it was full within 10 minutes of that booking time, right? And that piece of this business, when does that ever come back, right? And it's
that's interesting though, because I think that Barry's is special enough to me, since, by the way, it's not, unless you're in New York City, it's not very convenient.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless it's New York City or the Hamptons and you happen to be nearby, like you could be on the east end of Long Island and not be proximate to a Barry's or a Soul location, right? And I think it affects them differently because they are really premium versus Orange Theory. Now, I think it's going to be very interesting to see where Orange Theory ends up, because I've been there from the beginning when they had 0 studios and enjoyed the entire journey of, I don't know where they're at now, 1,600, whatever it is. And they never closed a studio, right? They've done creative things internally to make sure that a studio never closed. They changed hands or whatever it was. But the fact of the matter is, on my ride home from my office in a few hours, I'm going to pass 15 Orange Theories, right? I'm not going to pass 1 Barry's, dude.
Right.
Right.
Good point.
So, and I'll pass 1 Soul Cycle.
Yep.
I'm going to pass 15 Orange Theories, 15 Pure Bars, a couple of Equinox, a Lifetime, probably 7 LA Fitnesses. Who else? Probably 10 Planet Fitnesses,
right?
4 Blinks, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's what's going to be super interesting to me, because at the end of the day, you don't need an Orange Theory on every street corner.
Totally. Yeah.
And they're there.
Right.
They're there. They're basically 7-Eleven at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Well, I think that's the interesting point, right? Their model was predicated around falling into everybody's backyard, right? And I think now people are literally working out in their backyard, and so it's interesting. I mean, I think there's a beauty that everyone that you named, literally every one of them, there's something that they cater to that is different than the other, right? And the closer you can get to someone's home, it's proven that obviously the more likely they are to go there. And I don't know, right? I don't know what it looks like on the other side of this thing, from Mirror to, to Peloton to, all of the other platforms that have been developed, in especially those that have been like enhanced or even created in this period, you know, are they going to be able to compete at a level that actually gets close to or surpasses what brick and mortar used to be? And I think that'll be interesting to watch, right? A year from now, hopefully we're having a very different conversation and we're all high-fiving in person. But, you know, it is a new world. And I just, even if everything was unchained and everybody was told it's okay to go do A, B, and C, right? It's okay for you to go sweat on the person next to you profusely and watch the person throw up in the corner and then come back on the treadmill. Like, if that happened again, who's willing? I don't know, you know. And I think I'm probably in that camp where I'm like, you know, there's some sort of motivation that comes from the in-person experience, and watching an operator do something at the highest level, I'm like totally obsessed with, whether it's a restaurant experience, a shopping experience, or my fitness experience. And so I think it's going to up the game for everybody who is trying to come back, because frankly, they're probably not going to be able to do it with as many people anymore, right? For a period of time at least. And so I'm excited to see that. Also excited to see like what does the trend show? You know, can as many operate as there were before, and how good can the at-home game get? I think that's there's a big chase happening there right now.
For sure. I mean, you know, I really miss solid core and F45 because, well, first and foremost, again, solid core, you can't really achieve that at home. You could if you had a piece of equipment that was a similar feeling to what you get in the studio, but I haven't worked out my core or basically my entire body in that way since the last time I was at solid core. So like, and by the way, the fact that you are on a megaformer, right? A piece of equipment that can be staggered out by X number of feet, and then they could also be flip-flopped, so it's head to toe, right? So, you know, I mean, that seems pretty safe to me versus Orange Theory swapping from a treadmill, you know, to the floor with a person, et cetera, which obviously they're not going to be doing. They're going to be, you know, I'm sure you're going to have your exclusive floor space and treadmill. But again, that affects the bottom line, right? Because all of these facilities are based on being able to have 10 classes a day with X number of people inside of them. And, you know, that's out the window, to your point, for the time being.
Yep. Yeah.
What happens to Planet Fitness? You know, what happens to Blink? What happens to Retro? What happens to these discount, you know, memberships?
Yeah, I think there'll be some, like, in that space, and I don't mean to knock them at all, right? But in that lower tier space, at least in terms of your wallet share, right? There's going to be like a Royal Rumble happening. You know, they're all chasing the same consumer.
The HVLP model.
Exactly. I don't think, for whatever reason, my instinct is that crowd comes back at a more rapid rate than the $35 a class crowd. Yeah. You know, but with that said,
you think people are tightening their wallets because of the uncertainty, and if they're allocating, you know, if they have a Peloton, which obviously a lot of people do at this point, you know, are they now saying, hey, I'm spending $45 a month on the Peloton membership, and not only am I able to use the bike, but I can get on the floor of my, you know, my wherever the hell my television is, and I stream to it on from my iPhone or whatever it is from the app. I can get in a pretty killer boot camp class. So why am I going to spend, you know, X dollars per class? You think it's that?
Yeah, good question. I actually think there's a psychological thing that happens with that crowd. Even if it's a dollar more, there's something that happens when they double up, right? If for, you know, the Peloton example is a great one. You know, I've invested in this. This is what I've been doing. I've proven it to myself. I think there's a period of time where there's like a commitment level to that thing that doesn't allow for the extra stuff to be bolted on, especially if it's in that higher end, you know, if it is that larger share of the wallet. Again, that's just instinct and experience with that crowd. It's almost like a shame on me thing. Like they don't want their decision to be a mistake at any point, right? Whereas at the end of the day, if the goal is really get me in the best shape I can possibly get into, it changes things a little bit. I just don't think that's not most people's motive, unfortunately. I think most people's motive is like, which is great, keep me sane, right? Number one, like, you and I, if I don't sweat almost every day, I'm not great to be around. I don't like being around myself. So I think that's, that's one, but a close second for a lot of people is just let me be quote unquote healthy. Let me look decent in my bathing suit. Let me not get it out of hand in any way, shape, or form. Not let me go compete, right? And a lot of us compete, like you're competing with yesterday's you, you're competing with last year's you, and that's fun. But I do think most people fall somewhere in between those two, those two opposing ends. And so that, I think that back to the point about, are they doubling up? I think there's a crowd that is always just going to have the newest and best thing. And they're going to be happy to have everything at home and still go 4 or 5 days a week out and consume it. But I really think that middle crowd, I think that's the ultimate question. Are they jumping around anymore? And I think there's a whole bunch of great things that have come from this period in time. I really do. Like, I think there's so many hidden blessings, silver linings, whatever you want to call it. And one of those happens to be the fact that we've actually all, at some point during this period, we've all like dug our feet in at home, at some point. I don't know about you, but that just never happened before. Like, never. Yeah. I mean, never. Dinner with the whole crew at the table, like there's so many amazing things that have come from this. And I think that's put a premium on that in-between space. So you mentioned a little bit ago, the time it takes, like when you make the decision, I'm waking up at 6:15 to get to the place and go here and go. I don't know that there's many places in the US that, that have that bolt on the front and back, like New York, right? Think about that number. Like, think about if you're the man or woman who has gone to Manhattan to your office, and let's just say you're healthy. Like, let's say that you work out 4 or 5 days a week. If you're the person that has gone into the city every weekday for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, and somehow you snuck in a sweat, front end, back end, middle of the day, whatever, do the math on how much in between movement time you've got in your life that it has just been taken. Like, it's just gone. And it's a huge number. I mean, it's absurd. Now, with a lot of people not going back into the city, for example, here and wherever you are in the world, it's happening. I think there's a greater appreciation for like making a decision and sticking with it. And so if, again, Peloton is the thing or whatever is the thing, or if it's just, hey, I'm going to bounce between 3 or 4 like at home content providers. I think there's a premium on that, on the non-commute time. And I think it needed to happen at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think, it's a shame that a pandemic is what had to cause it to happen. Right. But everything's been, especially in New York, obviously, just excess. Yeah. I mean, I spent, last year I commuted to the city 3-4 days a week, was on a plane once every 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes more. And still, and still worked out typically at a group fitness class 6 days a week, right? So yeah, you're right. I mean, think about that, right? Time is everything, right? You could create more of anything and replace more of anything other than time, right? Yeah. So I feel like that really is what everybody's rethinking, right? Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, and we could touch upon this before we wrap up, is, lifestyle, right? Like now I have no interest in going back into the city. I miss it tremendously,
Sure.
but it's not even an option right now, right? Like I go out of my way to go into my office in the city, and and by the way, thinking about that now, it's like a daunting task. Meanwhile, it was second nature months ago, right? So, I can't be the only person on the planet thinking about the fact that I don't need as much office space, the fact that, all of those meetings that I was in person, last year on a plane or a train or whatever I was using to travel uncomfortably, by the way, for the most part, right? Like going out of my way to make that happen. I mean, Zoom just saved me nothing but time, right?
Totally.
It's so, the fact that, and by the way, it became like, it's not like, oh, you're lazy and you just don't feel like flying to Los Angeles to sit down with me to talk about potentially doing business together. Right. It's not that anymore. It's like, yeah, okay, this is way more convenient. Let's hop on a Zoom call quick and and it's just become okay, right? Like my sales meetings with my teams, I don't even want to get in a conference room. Again, not because I'm afraid that I'm going to get sick right now at this point in time. If we're spaced out and we walk in with masks and we take all the precautions and we sit down, I'm not concerned about that right now. It's just, you know what? I'd rather take this in the car while I'm driving to look at real estate, or while I'm driving here, or while I'm in my office this way more comfortable. And I'm convinced that people could be productive as long as they're productive people.
I agree. I think that's it, right? And I think there's so much beauty in that. I mean, I think that people are realizing that, I've never been diagnosed with, I don't know if I'm ADD, but I will tell you this, if I'm here hustling and a Ferrari drives by, I am off my hustle for a good set, and it's take that and pull that back to like the normal office environment. People are pulled out of their routine all day, every day. Somebody needs something here and there. And I think that's a factor. And obviously it happens at home too. I mean, I've got 2 little ones, and my God, it is no joke trying to get something done at home. But boy, if there's a way that people can carve out a space that is not interruptible, right?
Yeah.
Man, I think it's an incredible opportunity. It's a life improvement.
I agree. And I think that a lot of the innovations that will occur as a result of what we're going through right now will be amazing. And, it's going to be very interesting to see how space is repurposed, especially in Manhattan. Like there's just not going to be the same need for office space. And those are some really big, tall buildings that are primarily filled with office space. Unless they're residential, and you can't just convert all the office to residential, that's not going to work.
Right.
So especially when you have more people moving out of the city for the time being than you have moving into the city. So it'll be really interesting to see what transpires there. And
how long does that curve take? Like how long does it take to soften?
Man, I have talked to a lot of very smart people who have said it's going to take Manhattan anywhere from, I've heard, from 5 to 10 years to really come back from this. I think 10 is extreme, but 5 sounds really right to me.
Yeah.
Because I think the majority of the people that, have thought about moving out of the city, families with young kids or one young kid, looking to grow the family and stuff like that. The ones who just loved everything there is to love about living in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time to love those things again, right? Because, the restaurants are not what they were. There is no such thing as a nightclub. The retail is majorly impacted. And It's a shame. It really is, but it's a reality, and it's far from over. I mean, we're actually, we're in the second inning of, what's going to happen from here. I mean, you have the PPP money running out now. You have, the $600 a week that people were getting for unemployment just ended. I think there's been a little bit of a false reality as a result of those things. People were spending more than they will now. I think there's going to be another uptick with the virus, unfortunately, in the fall when kids are going back to school. So I think it's going to be very touch and go for the rest of this year. The same way that a lot of the fitness folks were just kind of preparing for a 90-day interruption, and decided not to really shift to streaming and things of that nature. They're now shifting to streaming. They realize, that 90-day thing was a pipe dream, and this is going to be a long-term thing here. I think, the same way that my friends who are living in Manhattan currently, the ones who weren't really fast to say, hey, we need to look at other options to get out of here long term, are starting to really look at that now. And the Hamptons are benefiting from that. There's a lot, Westchester, North Jersey. There's a lot of areas that are benefiting from that in a major way. But this is not a short-term thing. This is it's funny because the ruralization, of our country is really happening now, where right before that, it was the urbanization, right? Of people just enjoyed living in cities. And once nobody could have expected that this would ever happen to us. It's like shit you see in movies,
100%.
So it's really strange, but the good news is Kinrgy's in a great position to benefit from everything that's going on. I mean, your timing could not be better,
Yeah, we agree. Yeah, and I think that's the fun thing about this brand and what's being built is it's just a feel good class. I mean, it's something that, whether somebody's trying to go through their own transformation or they're just trying to feel a little bit better. It's the focus is on energetic health versus what I think we talked about, like chasing, objectives and trying to like compete with others or yourself or that heart rate monitor. There's just, people want to feel good, right? And they want to, when they sweat a little bit, they want to come out on the other side with some other benefit. And that's really what this is all about. So it's a blast. And I, take it from a guy who's been, the regular gym goer, like you for a long time. And I'm a Barry's fan. Doing this the first time I did it. And when I finally let myself like get out of my comfort zone a little bit, by the way, didn't know anybody around me at the time. And so just let free. There's something there, right? And that energetic health and actually feeling better post workout psychologically, not just because of the pump you got on. You got to give it a whirl. So,
well, listen, I'm all about it. First off, I love getting out of my comfort zone. And that's how you truly grow. And I will say that I've realized through this that, again, I was working out too hard on some levels where it's counterproductive. There's a such thing as just working out too hard and not resting and not actually being in your prime physical condition as a result of that. And, the future is mindfulness, right? We know that. We knew it was coming. We knew it was on the horizon. And being able to take something like movement, right? Movement is where you can connect your physical and your mental. And that's without having experienced it myself and learning about Kinrgy from you. That's what it sounds to me like you guys are doing. And I think that's the next frontier.
Yeah, so agreed.
You're well positioned.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And and thanks for that. I think that, you said it right. The muscles, it's tension and rest. That's the only way the muscle grows. And when we just keep pounding it and putting tension on it, if it's growing, it's not growing appropriately, right? It needs that rest to grow. So yeah, it's good. I love, you've inspired so many people, myself included, because those days where you're like, you know, God, you got that day starting at 4:30. It's, you know, I'm on the train back home after a dinner, and you are the first thing I pull up to see. Well, if anybody's doing it, I know he's sneaking it in, and you never let me down. So I appreciate you.
You're the best. I appreciate you, and I look forward to obviously following along and taking a Kinrgy class, and you know, hopefully experiencing it with you at some point as well.
Right on.
That's
Yeah,
gonna
exactly.
be awesome. Excellent, brother. Well, listen, say hello to everybody, and I enjoy you taking the time as always.
Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Be good.
Cause this is digital discussions.